Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Air Jordan 38. And if you remember from the 37, a lot of the pros and cons of those, issues with maybe some blunt force durability to those, containment issues, Jordan Brand has really gone over the top to solve those issues in the 38. And even though these definitely aren't for everybody, there are pros and cons of them, just like every other shoe, which we'll get into. Can't deny how much more rugged and maximalist these are versus its immediate predecessor, and I think a lot of people are going to really like the additions they've made in these. Let's get started in the uppers. Now, speaking of the uppers in general, this is the WNBA colorway. I did want to get the women's colorway just to see what the sizing differences were, and if you could just swap them if they more of a unisex, you could swap colorways. We'll get into that in the fit section. But if you look at the uppers of these, the first thing that really stuck out to me was the tongue. Now, the tongue here is double thickness in the most proximal portion, the portion that's going to hit your ankle. Now, I noticed with this, the tie down, even though the tie down is really good, the tongue, because it is just so maximalist and just so bulky, does require a little bit of breaking. You actually have to tie down over it a few times before you will get a really strong tie down on it. So I would say wear these around the house a little bit before you actually try to go play in them. Now, the one thing I really liked about the tongue as well as other parts of the shoe is just how ventilated these things are. Kind of like in the 37s, except in the 38s, that weaving is really just on the sides, and it is just super chunky. If you look at it under the microscope there, you can tell the threads are really beefed up versus in the 37s. This is more of like the netting you get underneath of like a trampoline park so that kids don't fall through. That's how strong this really is. It's more of a netting versus just a meshing, which I really like. They almost remind me of cables. Now, the one thing you'll also notice is the tongue has a ton of break points in it too. There's a ton of breathing channels. If you look at these things on the breathability test, I mean, it's no joke. They only heated up 88.3 degrees, cooled down another 37.2 degrees, and air was really flowing out of both the tongue as well as the side panels of it. And because the tongue has a pretty nice elastic gusset on there, it's really not gonna move anywhere either, so the containment stays really nice. Now, if you move to the back of the uppers, you'll see that the heel counter does dip very low in the back. Just a little bit more ease of use of your Achilles, just a little bit better movement, kind of north to south, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion with the shoe. But because this is more of a high top, and because you get that high top lace eyelet, they still lock down really well. I had really no issues with heel slippage whatsoever, but they did feel just a little more comfortable in the back of my ankle, which I liked. Maybe look at the upper durability test, 10-second tie grit sandpaper. Yeah, I mean, the burr does rip through that real decorative layer. It does not get through to the underside layer. However, because there is exposed carrier foam there, there is some plastic. I'd say if you are a real extreme dragger or slider on outdoor courts, these are going to start to look a little bit funky after a while. However, on indoor hardwood, they should have at least an okay durability profile for a really extreme dragger. Remember, the biggest piece of the containment puzzle that every shoe tries to go after is getting it to be containing enough, but also not too clunky. And in the 38, you get all these stitched panels here on the medial and lateral side, which do give it just such a rugged nature to it. It also protects the ankle as well from blunt trauma to the outside. But also, they've got these plastic clips that connect underneath of it into the shank, which we'll see in the midsole teardown. At first, I almost thought there was Zoom Air in here. It's what it looks like with these little dots. It is just plastic, though. I cut it open in the members' first video and showed that there is just plastic under there. But because it is all connected underneath of it, the containment stays really excellent, especially if you're getting a nice lockdown on them. So for containment on these, it really does not get much better. But getting into the midsole teardown in the 38s, you get a full-length Zoom Strobel unit, followed by a full bed of Cushlon 3.0. Now, these things do have a shank, which we just showed in the upper section. It crosses under the ball of your foot and then slides out from the medial and lateral side of these wings onto the uppers to create more of a lateral container and medial container. But remember, there's so much air tension in the Zoom Strobel unit, it almost acts as a little bit of like a buoyancy for the Cushlon 3.0. That same really nice, elastic, soft feeling like we saw in some other Nike shoes and in Jordan brand shoes recently, but it does feel excellent. However, on foot, really the only thing you feel is the Zoom Strobel unit. You really don't feel the softness underneath of it. But honestly, I think that's kind of a good thing that the performance is there. I will say, because there is no shank back here, you are relying on the Zoom Strobel unit, but just don't expect as much shielding as maybe some other shoes would with a shank that's in the middle. And if you look at this setup on the bounce height test, got 38.5 centimeters of bounce height in the heel, and then 43 centimeters on average in the forefoot. I really think, the Formula 23 sometimes does maybe zap some of the energy return you would get from the Zoom Strobel unit. Plus, Zoom Strobel, it's a full bed of that zoom, right? It has a lot of energy to disperse. It has a lot of surface area, I should say, for energy to disperse along. So you're not going to get the crazy bounce height you get from smaller Zoom Air units. However, for a shoe, like I said, as maximalist as it does feel bottom light because of that Formula 23, plus you get the Zoom Strobel. So it does feel like a very lively and bouncy shoe underfoot. And looking at the outsole tread, you're going to have this little, like, you know, arc reactor in the middle of it, and then it kind of radiates out from there. You get kind of like a quasi delta and herringbone pattern. You know, it's fine. It is pretty shallow of a tread depth, kind of like the 36s were in that aspect. However, the thing that I've just found on these that is just the absolute best on the outsole tread is that you get a legit platform of a lateral flange of rubber here, as well as you get a little bit of a flange here in the forefoot as well. It break points here, right, and kind of like the lateral metatarsal area, and then you get another one up here. So you get a ton of pivoting power in the forefoot because those flanges are legit platforms and you're getting two of them. The one thing I will say though is it becomes rolled rubber back here in the heel. So the heel moves in transition step very easily. It's a very easy shifty shoe in the heel, but the stability in the rear foot is not like it is in the forefoot. So if you're looking for a really stable rear foot shoe, it's not as great as maybe some others or predecessors to it, but in the forefoot, you're getting just unreal stability. So if you're playing up on the balls of your foot a lot, this is just one of the best out there, if not the best right now. And if you look at the speed ratio of the 38s, comes in at a 2.66, which, you know, for how protective the 38s are, I think that is pretty darn good. And like I said, they feel bottom light on your foot. They do not feel like they are holding you down. Now, if you look at the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, a little bit of a different story, millimeter of damage on this 2mm tread depth. And once you get into the rear foot, you do get actually some checkerboarding of that tread where you get cross threads on there. So this is going to start to wear down. I think even with the XDR or the, you know, the PF or EP version or whatever, I don't think these are a great outdoor shoe. So I think as long as you're keeping them on indoor hardwood or rubberized courts, I think the durability profile will be okay. But these are more performers, not necessarily more rugged durability shoes. But getting into the most surprising part of the 38s, and to me the most pleasantly surprising part of the 38s, was their fit. I mean, a narrow medium foot, just go true to size. A 2E though, I think you can go true to size and break these in. I know they have this plastic clip here, but I think there is enough netting here, and I think there's enough give in them to where you probably can go true to size on these, get a really good one-to-one performance fit, and still not have to go up in size and weight on the shoe and still make them feel, you know, pretty lively underfoot. I'd say if you're a 4E, I definitely would be going up that 1/2 to 1 size. And if you are a 2E, you can go up a half size on these. So really a pleasant surprise on them, especially because if you are someone with lumps, bumps, bruises, snake bites on your foot, if you throw an orthotic in these, I really think that these become a really elite shoe underfoot. Because like I said, the Zoom Strobel is going to protect a lot. And the only bad thing is that there is no shank in the arch. Now you do have a plastic piece here that comes in the arch, and so you are going to get good arch support. It's not going to support the foam as well, right? So arch support for you is okay for the foam in here. So the durability would really be augmented by a good orthotic. And that brings me to today's sponsor, which is Move and the All Day, Game Day, and Game Day Pro orthotics. Because if you do want an orthotic for number one, just rigid, lightweight, low profile performance like the Game Day, or just all day comfort in your sneakers like the All Days, Move really does have you covered. They are one of the very few orthotic brands that I will ever put on this channel that I will put my name behind. And with Move's lightweight but ridiculously strong shell, as well as textured top cover, these things will just fit into any shoe, especially because they come in specific sizes, not just small, medium, and large. So, I mean, in terms of the low profile but uber performer type orthotic, does not get much better than the Game Day Pro, and All Days. If you do want to pick up a pair of them, I will leave a link in the description below, and they kind of match the colorway too, so that's pretty cool. So thanks Move for sponsoring this video, and back to the shoes. And so speaking of those playing characteristics of the Moves, you know, getting into the playability of the Jordan 38, like I've been kind of talking about the whole video, I think if you want a more containing, more maximalist shoe that acts like a little bit more of a nimble shoe, this is the perfect marriage, because they are more bottom light, because that shank is in the forefoot. You know, for someone who is a bigger center, I think as long as you're putting an orthotic in them, if you're, like I said, bigger player, I would be throwing an orthotic in them. But anyway, from anywhere from a center all the way to a wing or a guard, fine. I really think that they play just as well. Now, the traction on these on indoor hardwood was elite. The only bad thing is they are going to start to wear down over time. So I would say, you know, if you keep these new, you are going to get outstanding grip. You're going to be able to make really hard cuts on your forefoot. Just remember, you are going to get used to that rear foot a little bit, just that transition step. Like I said, it plays like the Mellows, which is great, it's fine. It's just when you're used to what the forefoot is doing in these and used to having all that pivoting power and all that gripping power, the rear foot is just a little bit of a surprise. So I would say anybody that wants shifty, nimble footwork and more of a containing maximalist package, these are your shoe. And honestly, from the 37s to 38s, I know a lot of shoes have really improved from last year to this year. A lot of companies have really taken a lot of design feedback and a lot of playing feedback to heart. And I think really the 38s are really up there in the pinnacle of shoes that have improved from last year to this year. So kind of like the Adidas Son of Shy or Chai, whatever you want me to say. I know my accent's bad, but kind of like those shoes, you know, they took the best aspects of the shoe, brought it into the next model and just kind of beefed up everything else. And I think 38s are going to be quite the good seller this year. To be honest, I think people are going to play in them and really like them just because comfortable, play really well, and you can use them for just multiple different types of play. So I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below if you're trying to get a pair of 38s or if you are moving on to something else. Let me know down below. And if you want to see one of the cousins to the Jordan 38 go under the knife, the Jordan Luka 2, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.